Yeah.
And we're on air. We are live.
It's just the two of us, Joe. What's going on?
Just the two of us.
What's going on?
We can make it if we try. All right. And welcome, everybody in the chats. Welcome, everybody. Here I type, and I think that's first post. So, yeah, we'll see if anybody's going to join us. It looks like we got a viewer, unless that's it catching me on my own pop-out chat. But anyway, TC here. Oh, you're already there, so I don't gotta help you to the recording there. All right. Well, here we go, TC.
Joe, I am usually on it unless I'm not.
Unless I'm not. Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up for me.
I'm very binary.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm being joined tonight by TC Reed, the one and the only. How's it going, TC?
Yeah, I do seem to be the one and the only. I don't see anyone else. A little scared. Did me wanting to rant run the other guys off or something? What's going on?
Sure. It might have gone the other direction, that the other guys started to run off, and you thought, well, since I've got the moment, I'd like to say a few things. Like, these are things you didn't think you could sneak past Andy and Trent, maybe. Oh, by the way, audience, we are going to be ranting tonight. That's tonight's topic. Is TC here? We're going to go down the rabbit hole with him on some of his rants. And I'm looking forward to it because, you know, going inside the mind of a wow.
Just a mind. I don't know. It did the musings of a displaced Texan in the Pacific Northwest. How about that?
Sounds good, man. Sounds like a nice level on Psychonauts. Psychonauts 2, the Tim Schafer. one of my favorite video games. Going inside the mind of people, and it's like turned into a platforming adventure game. And anyway, that's what we're gonna be going on the way through TC's mind tonight. Which, you know, I don't know if it's gonna be like the running of the bulls or if it's gonna be more like the running of the barefoot hipsters. So.
I don't know what's going to happen. I make no predictions or assurances at this point.
If it was me, TC, it wouldn't be running because it would be mainly shuffling with your feet close to the ground because of how much ice there is on the ground all the time here. We got 2 months of winter already built up before the first official day of winter here in the northern Midwest in Iowa. And that will be December 21st tomorrow. As of right now, we're recording on the 20th. Anyway, you might notice that Andy Dennison and Trent Ham are not joining us tonight. Both of those guys are getting ready for their vacations, and Andy caught a bit of a cold. Anyway, hope that both of those guys have great vacations. Get your rest and feel better. And don't listen to this show if you want to keep TC in high regard. Apparently, because he's going to say everything he couldn't say when you were around, right, TC?
Absolutely. I mean, I do have to hold my tongue around Trent, especially. Andy, not so much. I mean, Andy, I've almost got him down to Warpath route, but he's still got that economic hang on where he thinks economic games are heavy for some reason. And it's a delusion that I've tried for years and years to cure, but that's a lost cause. I'm a little bit more respectful to Trent because, he likes L5R and my Keyforge, so I represent with him. But I don't know. He was mentioning some games to talk about that I didn't even heard of. So we'll see. Let's see if I can't maintain some level of dignity and respect here.
Probably, as long as they stay far away. But hey, if you guys are listening, maybe it'll get good here. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking then about some games that got passed up that TC didn't think got the airtime. We're going to be. What is it? Haven't you written a poem about the bullies in your high school, TC, that you're going to be getting out?
No. But I don't visit that era in my life. No. The high school, it was kind of weird and awkward. Okay,
well, instead of that, then you're still on for the recorder solo, right?
Yes, I definitely yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I got some games here that through various means and opportunities I got that I had either not heard about or maybe kind of heard about, or was like, what the heck, my kids wanted it, let's try it out. That, I ended up playing and thought was fairly interesting. Not what doesn't say good, but at least interesting enough that they at least should have registered something. But like, there was nothing on these things in it. I'm kind of in a mood anyway where I'm tired of playing Keyforge and listening to people say, "Oh, well, my deck was just crap, is why you won." Yeah, I'm tired of hearing that. I've been playing Keyforge like way too much, and hearing people complain about that's got me kind of in a mood. And playing some of these weird Essen games that I've been forced to on Wednesday nights. People who with more money than me get to go on these nice big trips without me and bring back these games that I have to sit through. So at least one of those was a nice surprise, which will be part of my review. But
yeah,
that's kind of got me.
There is a silver lining, it would seem. Yeah, we get a little bit here on the.
Well, it takes like 8
review.
dry, soulless Euro games to find the one that's halfway interesting. So I don't know how much of a payoff that is. But yeah, so as you can tell, I'm kind of in a mood. I'm just gonna go with it. If you need to reel me back, just kind of hit mute and be like, "Sorry, we got some technical difficulties. I had to cut TC off."
Well, TC, I don't know here. Just to preface with what little information I have about the game that you're reviewing, which you've apparently grouped together with 7 other dry soulless Euros. One of the main mechanics on its BGG page was dice rolling. So a dry soulless Euro with some dice rolling, I kind of wonder, if it's
it was bundled with a bunch of dry soulless Euros, right?
Oh, okay. So this one's really kind of like the unique one. By the way, on our way to review, because I think TC it's a great time for review. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus. Check them out at GameSurplus.com. A lot of new games. I could go down the list of ones that were interesting to me, but there was the Luxor, the nominee for Spiel des Jahres. There was the Quacks of Quablin, something like. Okay, it was the one that won the Kennerspiel. That's what I remember, and I was like really close to getting it. They also had, last I checked, Path Through Petra, which looked really cool. I think that the stone city of Petra is very interesting, very exotic seeming from my perspective. I'd love to see a good game done about an interesting thing. So anyway, check those games out together with all that's new and noteworthy from GameSurplus.com. TC, tell us about your experience here playing the games from Essen and which one stood out to you.
Okay, so I have been trudging through the Essen Hall that at least 2 people went to Essen and brought back a whole bunch of games. And I know at least 2 to 3 75-pound kilo boxes came back from Europe per person, I believe. And so I've been going through these, and I played some really bizarre things. Like there's this one, it begins, I can't remember what it was with I was like Rattata or something. It's about natives on an island in tattoos.
Raiatea, something like that. What'd you think of that one?
Well, first of all, I couldn't get the guy set up the cover, and the cover's like this guy with his tongue sticking out.
So this thing that's not a very accurate. I've heard some very bad things about just that choice in general.
Okay, well, good or bad, it was. I can tell you one thing: it was distracting. I can tell you right now. Good, bad. I don't know anything about the history of that. I can tell you, having a guy stare at you with his tongue sticking out the whole game is like the most distracting thing you can see. But the highlight of that one was through various mechanics, like this weird bidding thing. I'm not going to get into it, but you had to get a bag and you put paper clips on cards so you know that's yours, and you put it in a bag with plastic chips and you shake it around and you're pulling stuff out. And the guy who owned the game did not even storing his games. He cannot put cardboard, like wood and plastic and cards together. They all have to be neat and separated. The minute this all went to a bag and shook up, he lost his mind. It was amazing. The game was worth it just for that, to watch this guy no, you're shaking the stuff that should be together, and the paper clips are bending the cards. And I was like, dude, that's what the rule book says. So anyway, weird stuff like that. Biosphere, which was a really strange use of dice. So I've been maybe I'll get a list going. So it's been a rather interesting play. A game called Fertility, which was dominoes, but it didn't. I mean, I was like, fertility. Oh, this is going to be a good game. It's fertility, but it wasn't. It was dominoes. Anyway, so Wednesday comes around. I'm like, okay, final place. And Eric breaks out a copy called Dawning the Purple. I'm like, what is this thing? Dawning the Purple? I mean, immediately I'm just, things are coming to mind. I don't even know what type of Euro this is going to be. But what was really interesting about this one, and what really struck me, because A, I never heard of it, and B, it was a 3-player game, and C, it was the most backstabby thing I've ever seen in my life, because it's 3 people. We're all Romans. one of us is going to be the emperor, the other person's going to be the heir, and the other person's going to be like running the Senate and stuff, basically. And you're all trying to vie to be the emperor. It's really kind of like Time of Crisis, but not thematically. It's like Time of Crisis. Gameplay, it's not. Gameplay, it's like a bizarre combination of a cooperative game like Pandemic with diplomacy, where you're just backstabbing the heck out of everyone. It was the strangest, most unique, most entertaining game I've played in a long time. And I was playing this thing going, man, I want you, Andy, and Trent to play this thing. And I want to watch it while you play it, because I know the way Andy and Trent play these types of games. It's just going to be just ruthless as all get out. And it was a very, very interesting game. It was very short. Well, it was like an hour. I don't know if you consider that short. It was just 4 years. One person's the emperor. They're trying to like manage all these catastrophes coming, the warriors coming out, feeding the people. And as a player, you get what were they called? These cars that you can basically mess with people. And like the emperor's trying to feed all these people, trying to get happiness, because the happier the population is, the more victory points the emperor gets at the end of that turn. So as the other two players were like raising the price of grain, so when he has to buy grain, he can't afford all he needs, so the happiness meter goes down. We were trying to assassinate him. I was like taking out senators, because if I could assassinate a senator, I was the highest senator, and if I took out assassinated the emperor, then my senator was next in line, so I would be emperor. And I was emperor for like a round, and then like the events came and I wasn't emperor anymore. It's got this really crazy mechanic of stamina, where you can only take so many actions based on you have 11 stamina, and it's exhausted, and once you run out of stamina, you're dead, and you take a -1 victory point and you try again. It is the craziest thing I've seen in a long time. And it was so I was like, dude, give me the box. What is this? It's a small Norwegian company. It was a Kickstarter game from like a year and a half ago. Remember Mo we brought in to do our Cataclysm episode? He's like one of the few people who actually covered this thing. And so I was like, it is a really good 3-player game. I really think this game could give Three Kingdoms Redux a run for its money. It's definitely giving Churchill a run for its money. And that's another 3-player game. But anyway, it's cool. It's fast. It's backstabby. It's fun. If you could get into the theme, it's great. It's a great investment of time. It's, an hour and a half of just yelling at each other and just trying to backstab and get more points. I think the name's a little unfortunate, because saying Donning the Purple really doesn't quite get across the that's a game about being a Roman emperor, other than unless you know like purple and the scarves and all that. But Joe, this is a good game. I was genuinely surprised, considering I was going in expecting another themeless dry Euro game from Essen that I was going to have to trudge through. And after we played that first game, we were like, we need to play this again. We want to play. This was fun. This was great. I think maybe a few reasons it didn't get as much hype as I thought it should. Like it was a Norwegian Kickstarter. It was a 3-player only game. There's maybe too backstabby, that people don't like that much confrontation, but with the right group of people, oh my goodness, this is definitely a game that if we ever got together, I'm running down a copy of this thing.
You have to make like a list of these, dude, because we've got a lot of bucket list games that when we can finally get together, we're going to be playing a lot of these.
I would be more than happy to watch you, Andy, and Trent play this thing. I would do a live Skype, and I would be the commentator. I'd be, so he's making a move for the emperor. No, he just assassinated the senator. Oh no, nope, he paid $15 for the heir. Is it going to be the heir? We were like,
is this like? I mean, you're making it sound to me, TC, kind of like a 3-player, heavier, kind of almost like Three Kingdoms Redux meets Time of Crisis without the deck building.
It's more. It's if I had to describe it very simply, it's Pandemic, because there are certain things that can happen that if those conditions are met, everyone loses. Like if 15 warriors, enemies get on the board, the game's over. If there was a few other conditions where if those triggered, then everyone lost. So you're trying to work together enough to keep things going. But, you want to get in a position where you can earn victory points. And the easiest way to do that is to be the emperor after all the events hit, and after you feed the people, depending on that happiness meter, you get like between 1 and 5 victory points. You're trying to maintain that. And the point is not to be emperor for a long time. Just do it at the most opportune time to cash in all these victory points. There you have a secret objective. Like mine was the most money. If I was the richest, I got an extra 2 points. So yeah, it's like this weird cooperative / opportunistic game where you want to work together, not to just in the game for everyone, but not working together enough to not actually score enough points to win. So it's this really interesting teeter-totter. Three Kingdoms Redux was like you were balancing like 5 plates in that game, right? You're like, yeah. This one is you want to be emperor, you don't want the game to lose, and you just got to figure out how to like manipulate the other 2 people at the table to do what you want.
That sounds like Time of Crisis, yeah. So it's because, like Time of Crisis is about like get to be emperor and then hang on to that. Yeah. That's how you get the most points. So it's interesting, TC. I always kind of like wonder when you suggest that I play a game, is it because you want to see me squirm because you know how outside of what you'd expect would be in my comfort zone? Or is it because you legitimately think like, hey, this is where me and you intersect in that sort of Venn diagram?
Here's where I think you would probably, this one mechanic made me think you would enjoy is that I know the one thing you complain about with Time of Crisis is the battle system, right? That you go in, you can lose. This one, if your strength is higher than the wooden pieces you're moving into, you kill them. Just into stories. You do it. You roll the dice just to see how much money you get.
Okay.
By killing them. So if I will go in and have a strength of 4 and I take out 3 pieces of wood, I roll 3 dice to see how much money I get for killing those guys. For like
that's an interesting form of battle. Yeah, like that it's more about the spoils.
And some of the dice have like, if you roll a 1, you draw a politics card. If you roll a 6, you get to take one of your exhaust tokens to avail your exhausted stamina to available. So there's dice rolling, but there's no dice rolling for battle other than the rewards. And you roll dice to see where things hit on the board. Like, okay, you roll.
Would you say that aspect is kind of like the Time of Crisis barbarians attacking? Because that certainly impacted the game in a way that I was that I bristled at.
Yeah. So you take like when the barbarians come out, you like roll, you roll a D6 and then there's 3 regions. If you roll a 2 on the D6, then 2 barbarians come out in the region 2 of each of those 3 provinces. Right. So
they're kind of like the 3 provinces are sort of like balanced so that every player sort of has to deal with this threat because the way that they're positioned is sort of maybe
and the way that everyone needs to deal with the threat is that you can put estates on the board, and each estate that's free and isn't in famine, which that's another way the board can end is like if everything goes into famine, so you got to build aqueducts to take care of the famine. You can, if your estate's not in famine and free, then you get 5. I don't know what's the Roman money back in the day, 5 drachnars, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, denarii or something like that.
If you have all 3 of them out, you get 15, which is pretty big. Or you can build a monument out there, and it like increases your strength and how much you get extra +1 when you roll the dice for money. And if you get all 3 out, you get an extra 2 victory points at the end of the game. I was just playing this, going, this might be the game you would gravitate towards that. Time of Crisis wasn't quite hitting for you.
Cool, right? Dude. Well, you've sold me on it here, TC.
Now there is random elements in there because when you're the Emperor, you like that 5. You just keep drawing these 5 events, and they're all bad, dude. They are all bad. It's like boom, earthquake, boom, volcano, boom, barbarians invade again.
So there are random elements, but they're like that they're going to be bad. I mean, to me, it's not. Like, just because a game has randomness in it doesn't mean that it's bad. I just specifically did dislike the elements that you've discussed so far, the combat system and the way that the event system, rolling 2d6 from Time of Crisis, and the way that you've described all the randomness in this game is that it gives you that thematic feel that the Time of Crisis succeeded at, but it doesn't really strike you as something where my complaints that went from Time of Crisis are going to be carried on here.
And all the random events are stuff that you all have to deal with collectively as 3 people. Because if you they could trigger this, so like that gives that randomness of where crap comes out, gives you the incentive to work together to try to overcome it. But you don't want to work too good together because that
sounds a bit like Archipelago, because you sort of have these crises that just come up and you got to sort of put out that fire. but you never really know what the other players are going to expect. This sounds really interesting, TC.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything about it, and I'm glad you got a chance to talk.
I've never heard about it. I played it and was really impressed with it. It seems to be fairly hard to get a hold of because it was. Eric said there's like the guy was selling it at his booth at S, and he just picked it up because he talked to the guy. There are some. It looks like there's some on Board Game Geek on their market. I'm going to actually reach out to this publisher. Right? It's Top Hat. I don't remember what it was to see if he has any extra copy because this is absolutely a game I want to get a hold of and get in my collection. It's unique enough that I have never played anything like it, and more than anything, it was a surprise and it was a tremendous amount of fun. And I like the backstabby, douchebaggy things anyway, so it just like clicked everything. And considering I was going in expecting a completely different game, it was so great.
Awesome, dude.
So that was Donning the Purple by somebody and published by someone. I don't have the details.
Hold on. If I press back a couple of times, it's going to be designed by Peter Schanke Olsen, published by Tom Pet Games, like my uncle Tom Pet. One word. Tom and Pet is one word. Games.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. If this even sounds like anything remotely interesting, check it out. It's pretty darn cool.
Cool. That's a wrap on Donning the Purple. And now I'm going to tell you guys about my first thoughts. Only first thoughts. Unfortunately, haven't got enough time with this one to really give it the review it deserves. About Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan. Pronunciation clue here. I've got my gringo accent going on, but Teotihuacan is the Aztec temple of the gods, and in this game, which is by one of the designers behind Solkin, the Mayan calendar, you are building the city of the gods by laying down these square dominoes that all have 4 symbols, and you're building up in the sort of shapes that you might imagine if you know the way Mesoamerican temple building rose up, from like a pyramid, but like a stepped pyramid. So in Teotihuacan, the actual mechanics going on are you have workers that are symbolized by dice, and they are going to, on your turn, you're going to have them laid out in starting positions on the board, and you will pick up one, move it on essentially what's a rondel, and then place it down, and then based on how many workers you have there, you'll get to do a stronger action than if you have less workers. So you could pick up a single die, which is your worker, and then move it to a spot, and then take a simple action if it's by itself. However, if you have multiple dice, that action can become significantly better. You can get more resources. If you can think about in comparison to Solkin, because really the resources in this game are pretty much the same as Solkin. Instead of corn, you've got cacao. But aside from that, it's mainly like Solkin. You're going to be, instead of like where in Solkin, you put out workers and then waited for them to get really good and then took them all off and got lots of really cool stuff because you were patient. Here in Teotihuacan, you are going to be like planning out all of these actions so far in advance. Like it feels like there's just such a deliberate element to Teotihuacan that even surpasses Solkin. In Solkin, I feel like there was a cool core system that had a way of playing that I felt like was the intended form of play. And then there was a next level of play that resulted in it not being a super fun game to play at high-level tournament play, evidenced by the fact that it's no longer a game at WBC, the World Board Gaming Championship, simply because the strategy where you could like put all your workers down on the corn and just like totally harvest all the corn would like make it so that any other player who wasn't doing that specific style of play just was, totally screwed. I think, and I think that was really frustrating. I think that it's kind of like the starvation strategy in Stone Age, where it kind of feels like it defeats the purpose of the game. So
we can feed your people wood instead of fish.
Mm-hmm. I think though that here with Solkin, I think that it's still a very highly regarded game, very highly respected. It's just that like I know that many players, especially what I would consider to be your sort of like scrubs like me, players that will join a tournament but don't want to be just totally owned by somebody who's doing a strategy that makes your strategy suck. I think that's mainly the thing, is that for people who aren't super good, the play is extremely frustrating. In Teotihuacan, on the other hand, unlike Sulkin, which my last minute or so of comments was about Sulkin, the Mayan calendar, here, Teotihuacan feels very similar. Like, I think that comparing those two, the comparison's deserved, because it feels very much like you're playing an optimization puzzle that's based around a central mechanism that's super, super in your control, but feels like you can just really suck at running it. You know, like I would say I won. I did not win. I got last place in our game, and the winner had nearly double my points, as I recall. It was, one of those where, like, if you know what you're doing and you get what you're doing, you can really run around the game board and almost lap other players. And I think that's really cool because I think that there's a deeper level of understanding here in Teotihuacan. There are 8 actions placed around the board, and those 8 actions allow you to construct the pyramid in question, the Teotihuacan temple in the middle of the board, which is going to grant you bonuses in the form of points or moving on 3 different temple tracks. Anybody remember Sulkin? You've got 3 different temple tracks, kind of same idea here. I think that, okay, hold on, back to the 8 different sections around the board. Other things let you get resources. 3 of the 8 get you the 3 different resources in the game: gold, wood, and stone. And then there's always, every single place, TC, this is a big kicker, every single place, whenever you pick up a die and move there, you can either take cocoa equal to the amount of different players' dice already there, including your own, you count as a player, +1, so you can get lots of cocoa when you go to a place, or to take the action, you have to spend cocoa. So it's like you're kind of trying to, where other players are at is very impactful to how much cocoa it's going to cost you to do actions. So like this management of cocoa is, to me, a much more thrilling element to the game than the corn in Sulkin, which just, the more workers that you place, the more corn you ended up having to spend. It was a very kind of simple structure. I think here you've got more going on in terms of the way that the board organically continues to develop. I mean, you're always wanting to make the best move at that time to most efficiently manage your cocoa supply. So I really do like the way that the base resource, the corn, if you will, here is managed in a way that is more interesting, at least from my perspective, so far after a play. Other things that you can do are upgrades that involve technologies, and there are 6 technologies available in every game, and every player can actually research these technologies. It's very, very cool the way this system works. These allow you to get points every time you take a separate action on the board, or allows you to get a discount when you take a different action on the board. So anyway, these 8 actions to me are very, very well depicted. I think the board itself is the perfect example of a game that looks busy if you don't know what's going on, and as soon as you understand the game, it is beautiful. It is so well laid out. Like, it is one of those games where if you see it from across the room, you're going to be like, oh goodness, what's going on here? But if you play it, you're like, I was like, holy crap, this is extremely, extremely clear. It is very, very clear what's going on. I think that it's one of the most beautifully designed and laid out boards that I've seen in recent years from a graphical design and organizational standpoint. I think that it just works extremely well. I also do feel like the production, I mean, it's a $45 game that has like essentially painted or screen printed, I believe they're painted dominoes, like a full set of these that go to build your temple. And they make for a very, it's the component that stands out. I think that it's a great element of the gameplay. I think that it is a beautiful part of the game, and I think that it works. And I can't believe that they got that all to fit into a game that should have already been a $60 game, and now they're only charging $45. To me, it's like the MSRP for this game is already on discount, and the production is great. It doesn't make sense to me why it's so cheap. So Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, I don't have, unfortunately, enough plays to really comment on the heaviness, deepness of the strategies. But from a single play, I think that it seems to make sense. I got my butt totally whooped, so I'm really interested in playing it again. And I think that the production is there. I think that the elements of replayability are there. You've got different actions that are going to change from game to game, because whenever you go to a place, DC, I already told you that you can either take cocoa or take an action. Well, there's actually a third option, and that involves like, it's kind of almost like a separate little side to the game where it's kind of the worship aspect of the game, and there are these tiles that get set up, and there's usually one in each spot. And once you go there, though, it's blocked until you decide to unlock all your workers. But it's kind of like whenever you go there, that worker is now off limits until you take an action or spend money to specifically unlock them. I haven't done a great job explaining this. Explanation's been very scattered, but just know that I'm extremely positive after one play of Teotihuacan. I think that it is going to be a less gimmicky Sulkin, the Mayan calendar kind of style game. I don't think it's going to be quite as fragile to being just snapped apart by extremely advanced players. I think that there's more in control. There is more in the hands of the players. There's less impact that you can have on a single turn without other players getting to answer it. So that I don't think you're going to see that sort of Sulkin, like if somebody does something, everybody is screwed, unless they're doing it too type strategy. So I think the game system seems more resilient to that sort of high level of play. And it also has just a ton of replayability. It has replayability that reminds me of the way that Gaia Project improved the replayability from Terra Mystica. So anyway, very, very positive. Teotihuacan, TC, have you gotten a chance to play this one?
I have not, but I do have a question. You were talking about how beautiful the board is artistically. I heard that right?
Not artistically, from an organizational and graphic design standpoint.
Okay, because as far as I can tell, I mean, the one game that the board really struck me as being the pinnacle of that was Lisboa. I love the way Lisboa looks, the art of it, the functionality of it, and have you say that struck out to you really, and at a decent, because Lisboa is a very expensive game, it's it's a very expensive game. To get something of that caliber at a $45 price is very appealing to me right now.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. I like to compare it to Lisboa. Lisboa is like that grand, like every single, like the punch boards to the box to the insert to everything is just super deluxeified. And I feel like Teotihuacan is everything about the game that needs it to pop without anything being deluxeified like that. There's nothing here that, in my opinion, is sort of a frill. It's just everything works and is great. I guess the one frill is those dominoes, but it's like, you need to have a central component that's that imposing and cool. And it does have, TC, it has like kind of Stone Age shaped resources. I mean, it's just cubes, trapezoids, and logs. But they are more than just, like brown cubes and yellow cubes. The dominoes in question, though, would have probably been a lot cheaper had they just done punch board as opposed to doing like the physical, wooden painted blocks. But I think that by choosing those painted blocks and having them really well done, it gives something that makes this game pop and just blows my mind that it fits inside this $45 MSRP.
Yeah, and I've seen this game played, and it does look really, really good. I really didn't sit to look at the functionality art of the board. I was just watching the people play and see if they were enjoying it, and it seems to be going over pretty well. I mean, anything at my game shop that I go to that lasts more than 3 weeks and isn't immediately flipped is something to look into.
No, this is, I think, one with a lot of staying power. I think Sulkin had a ton of staying power, even though when it really got to the cream of the crop, it had some struggles. I think Teotihuacan has that sort of staying power that Sulkin had, but I even think that it has more potential. I think that it has easier accessibility. It has, I don't know, just to me, it's more thrilling decisions on your turn. I mean, the choices that other players make, I feel like I'm really trying to sort of craft a strategy from the very first turn on. And it's not just going to depend on a few recipes to fulfill. I do think that there's quite a bit going on here. And I don't know. I really like it. I think that there's a lot here. So
we'll be sure to keep an eye on that and see if it makes the long haul, because that's definitely something to consider for another potential thing or something else. Hint.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit longer and viewy.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, could pop up in the long view.
Yeah, that'd be really cool if it does have that kind of legs. That'd be something to look at.
Well, TC, that brings our review section to an end, and now it's time for you to
rant.
Yeah, you're just gonna go off on your own here. So TC rides off into the sunset, everybody.
Okay, what brought this on, Joe? Well, I'll tell you what brought it on. It's been a month of a Bethesda disaster of a video game I've been dealing with. Oh
So
man.
why are you subjected to Fallout 76, TC?
Because
Why can't
I've
you
got
just...
two friends who adore the franchise and have been dragging me in weekly to play it with them. And the only reason I've been doing that is somehow through some bizarre glitch, I'm playing their copy of the game they downloaded. So I'm not out anything except my sanity, my time, and my patience, which is substantial at this point. And oh my goodness, Joe, I have not seen this epic level of a video game train wreck that this thing has become. But that's a whole different story. That's the backdrop of why I'm cranky. why I've been just like, oh my God, really? How can this thing get any worse? Oh, look, they did it. That's wonderful. That's great. No more glitches. That's God. Yeah. Bethesda, get rid of that engine. It's something else. If it's glitchy, don't turn it online where it's anyway. So I've been kind of in a cranky mood. I've been feeling the need to rant, and I've been basically hiding behind Keyforge, playing lots of Keyforge, and even now I'm starting to get a little cranky because now I'm going to Magic Dens to play this thing, dealing with Magic players and their rules and their shuffling. And get this, Joe. I had a guy who was doing the Magic stuff. Yeah. I go, dude, why do you do that? Well, that's because you don't know what's in my hand. Because if I organize them, you know how many cards of what type I have. And I see how many cards of what type you have because you organize your cards in your hand. I said, well, it's not helping you win. Why the heck are you doing it still? Anyway, so as you can tell, my frustration level is rather high. So I started thinking, when I heard that Andy and Trent were going to be here, that this is a perfect forum for me to go off. And I'm just going to go off on games that I got no hype, no talk, no nothing. And I picked it up, rather enjoyed them, or rather had an experience with them that was at least worth mentioning. That I just want to share these with you, and it'll be fun just to kind of go off on these games a bit because they're probably not very good games. I found some entertainment value in them, and I got a list of like 4 or 5 here, and then you can chime in if you've even heard of them, or you can go, "What? Can you explain that?" And
I'll try to be the voice of reason here. Yeah.
And I have to start off this list as always with the crazy dragon game Kate picked up. And I've talked about this one on the show in the past, and that is Wrath of Dragons. We were up at Guardian Games, and my daughter, she loves dragons, bless her heart. And she's looking like some big fighty game. And she pulls up, look, Dad, there's like this game with like this big dragon on the cover breathing on fire. Right? It's looking all crazy. And I'm like, wow, I've never even heard of this thing. What the heck is this thing? Turns out it's a Euro game, right? And you're a dragon and you destroy pieces on the board. It is a very Euro-centric game, but instead of worker placement, it's worker takement, right? Because you're a dragon flying around different areas with card play and stuff. And it was a Cryptozoic game. I remember this game because it came out. We got it. Game Store was just around the corner. The game had just come out. Kate picked it. They had Cryptozoic reps at GameStorm representing the company. I said, hey, do you have Wrath of Dragons? Like, we don't have that game. We've never heard of that game. I'm like, I have it. It says Cryptozoic on it, and you guys don't even know about it because they were too busy pushing some RPG or something. It was really funny. Like, when your own company doesn't know the existence of its own game, it's humor in and of itself. And whenever I talk about a game that just random, I didn't know one knows about, I always have to bring up that one simply because even the company reps that were representing the company didn't know the game existed. So it was a very, very interesting. It's at least different because it's putting stuff on the board, you're taking it off and you're collecting sets. It's got cute little wooden dragons. Kate was ultimately disappointed because guess what? You're not dragons fighting each other, right? You're just eating sheep, you're destroying buildings, and you do it in a very Euro fashion with not any direct confrontation. You just kind of do it before anyone else just to maximize your points and be more efficient. Very unusual game, very interesting theme. I think, but my gut feeling is that they wanted this to be a Dungeons and Dragons game or something and couldn't get the license. And we're like, yeah, just make it dragons and just push it out. Whatever. You do need player aids to actually play it well because what comes in the box isn't functional. The cards are kind of crappy, but man, it was such a different game. Something that I think at least should have been mentioned somewhere, at least for what I was trying to do. So that's my honorable mention there with Wrath of Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
You've not heard of that, have you? Did I get you
I
on
have not
that?
heard of it at all, except for when you mentioned it before. I remember when you mentioned it, brought it up, and you were like, "Yeah, it's kind of like, it's almost like you can get your dragons, but they don't do what dragons usually do in games."
And I think I even stumped Murr on that one. Murr was like, "What? I haven't heard that," and I knew I stumbled upon gold when when I found that one. So yeah, another game that now we're getting to my official list here of games that didn't get enough. When I was in college, I studied entomology. I love bugs. And I'm always looking out for bug games of various types. And this was an ant game. And it wasn't March of the Ants. That was a local game published here. This was published several years before through Rio Grande Games and Yastari Games. And it's called Myrmes. It's a really strange name for an ant game. I think it was originally called Enterprise, which I thought was a better game. It is a very, very Euro game where you got this little board and you're trying to maximize your board. You're trying to get your ant, you put your ant, hatch your ant, put it out. And when your ant goes on the board, you got this little plastic ant. The plastic ant it goes into an ant trail and they become like hex pieces, like Tetris pieces, and you're laying them out on the board and you're trying to collect resources. And if you like, you can kill like ladybugs and grasshoppers and stuff and feed them to your brood in the ant nest. And it was a very clever game, very interesting, very, very unforgiving Euro game. Because if you did not plan your what you were doing, and you didn't prepare for winter, which is like the fourth phase of the game, you could get wiped. I mean, your ant colony could get hindered pretty hard because if you couldn't feed them, then they cannibalized their own eggs to feed you. Basically, ate your young to sustain your colony, and that was harsh because that was your future workforce. Very interesting little game. The designer, can't remember off the top of my head. He's only done one other game and hasn't done another one since this one. I actually managed to get a hold of an expansion that fixed some of the typos on some of the tiles and added a light expansion to the game. A very, very cool little game that really embraced its ant theme very well, I thought, and was very entertaining. And it was a hex map, so it's like kind of like, ooh, it's a hero, but I kind of got that war game vibe because I'm putting hexes out, and the ants and ants are cool. And then I'm going to move to my enemy's ant nest. We're going to have like a little, I'm going to overlap their pheromones so they're gone and ha ha ha. If you get a chance to look into this one, that's very, very deep little Euro strategy game, a very brutal strategy game in terms of if you can't plan your turn and prepare for things, you're going to get wiped. So that's Myrmes. That's how I'm going to call it, Myrmes.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about there. I've played this one, TC, and I found that I really liked the options that it gave, the way that the pheromones and the way that you're laying these out to sort of almost tile lay your way towards area control on this board. Very unique, very thematic, in a very Martin Wallace feel.
Yeah, it was.
By that, I mean, Martin Wallace takes the game system and uses that to depict the theme, not the extra appendages. It's not like there's a deck of cards that's all thematic. Like, the gameplay itself here is what's thematic. If you break it down to what you're scoring points for, it feels like a Euro. But like when you look at those, like the weighing of those pheromones and the way that everything is competition with your other ant hives, and it's kind of like a system of worker placement as well. But I thought that this was a really cool game. Then one time I played it, unfortunately, I felt like I needed to play it with the same group, and that same group never came back to it. I didn't really want to have to explain it again because it's a unique game, a very unique game that's tough to wrap your head around. Even just the way that the scoring opportunities work, there's a lot of planning in this game. I would say that it's fairly heavy, TC. I don't think it's.
Yeah, if you don't prep for winter and it hits you, you can almost get taken out of the game like during the first winter phase.
Yeah, it's an intense. When I say heavy, I don't mean that the rule set's that heavy. I think that it's a difficult game. It's a management game where you kind of need to know what you're planning towards from the very beginning. And that's why that first game that I played of it was just, pressing buttons, pulling levers, figuring what's going on. Never got a chance to revisit it. I eventually did move it out of my collection, not because I didn't think there was something there, but just because, the time had come where it'd been so long since I'd read the rule book that I was like, well, I foreseeably don't think I'm going to get this played again, at least, not going to go back to the rules and stuff, considering that that initial first play, that initial, like, I know the systems of the game there, so there's not really that low-hanging fruit to tease me into actually sinking my teeth into the system. So maybe if we get a chance to play together, TC, this would be a good one for us to play, because I think this sits towards the Euro side, but you sound pretty enthusiastic about it.
Oh yeah, I liked it so much that I even one of the complaints I had when we were playing is that there was no player aid, because there's a lot of options you can take in this game, and they're just all in the rule book. And so I got tired of like everyone passing the rule book around to know what actions they can turn. So I made little player aids and I laminated them, and I have one for each player. That's how much I enjoyed the game. And so if you play with me and my copy, I got a copy that like tells you all the actions you can do and how to do it. And it's got a quick little reference to like tell you everything you can do without going, wait a minute, I need to look at the rule book. Okay, what phase, what's coming up next, and all that. I got them all in a nice little piece of paper. That's how much I enjoyed the game, because hey, I really like bugs and ants. Any game with bugs and ants, I'm probably going to lean towards at some point. So what else do I have on here? Oh, this is a good one. This is actually a GMT game that most people who play war games do not like. I was really surprised by this, because I thought this was a really good game that could get people into wargaming, and that is Space Empires 4X. Space Empires 4X is a true 4X game, not like Scythe is a 4X game or Twilight Imperium's a 4X game. No, this is a 4X game in the truest sense of the word, where you explore, you win the game by being the last person standing, by eliminating the other players. But the wonderful, wonderful thing about this game is the entire game is modular. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want it to be. I've played it both ways. I've played it where it was just really simple, where you didn't eliminate other players, you just had to like go accomplish like a few hidden, like a la Twilight Imperium, where you just do certain objectives. You can do them without being confrontational, or you have the objectives you can. I played it where we just threw the whole thing out, where to upgrade, you had to bring all your ships back into port to upgrade them. You had to have a spreadsheet to take care of, check off everything. And it's even got a really, really good co-op variant on it, where these giant, have you seen the Star Trek episode where like the planet eaters like, it's destroying everything, and the Enterprise's got to destroy it, and then it meets this other Enterprise. It's like these planet eaters are invading the solar system. You got to take them out. And so you automate those, and that's a really fun co-op game. It's such a sandbox game in the truest sense of the word. And I just love that you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. And I never really got why. And it's got a really simple battle system where, everything's hidden. You're like, okay, I have this shit. This could be like 8 ships. You don't know it because I have a ship. And I have the number underneath it, and it's hidden. And you're not going to know what ship this is or how many there are until you run into it. So you can send decoys out. Like, okay, he sent like these ships. I know that's the 8 ship, and like my real ship of fleet's like warped around this other way, and I like totally hit someone from behind. And, oh, it's so juicy. But maybe it's that it was a war game. Maybe to wargaming people, maybe that it was just, people didn't want like the elimination. But I never understood, because it was modular, dude. You could just, whatever you wanted, you could bait and switch. It's got a second expansion out. People who play it really, really like it. But man, finding those group of people can be difficult sometimes. And when it's one of those games that a lot of people didn't talk about. When they did, it was like, whatever. But if you want to just dig your teeth into a really cool little space warfare game with exploration and management and a bunch of stuff, and you want it to be really heavy, or you don't want it to be, Space Empires 4X has got you covered. I picked it up 50% off, and I was like, holy cow, I just ripped whoever sold this to me off. It's a good game, good stuff, but it's weird. I never quite understood why this one didn't get the buzz or the talk about it did. Maybe it was GMT. Maybe it was a space game without a licensed theme. I don't know. Go figure.
Yeah. You don't exactly have your true and tried and true wargamer crowd that's looking for a history experience, and so the fact that it's going to be fictional is going to not necessarily appeal to that specific crowd. And then yeah, you've also got to contend with the fact that it's not going to appeal necessarily to the crowd of IP, science fiction fans that are looking for a specific license. So I know that Trent has played this one before, TC. I think he's spoken very positively about his experiences. However, I'm pretty sure that first experience he had, like they had found they played a rule wrong or something.
Oh,
so
I think you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I even found like one of the planets I discovered was Arrakis. I'm like, cool. I found Arrakis. What did you find over there? I just found Hoth. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah. What else do I have on here? Oh, this is a good one. This is another game that my daughter picked up. This came out fairly recently. It came. People didn't talk about it. People who played it thought it was garbage. I thought, I said, Kate, don't pick this up. Don't waste your money on this thing. I hear it's bad. It's like, I don't care. It's got dragons in it. Again, here you see a theme here, Joe. Game with dragons. That's what she's going to end up wasting her money on. And that was the T-Dragon Society, right? Mm-hmm. This game was a very light deck builder game where you played your hand open, right? You didn't have a hand. You just drew cards and you just execute them as you did. Very enjoyable game. Now, there's nothing quite like playing a dragon named Chamomile and you throw a card over and it bites your hand and your turn is, oh, it's sleeping. It's happy. Oh, the thing is, God dang it. Stop biting me. Chamomile. And, but what's real?
I think it's chamomile, isn't it?
Well, there's ginseng.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I drink chamomile tea quite a bit. I don't want to say I'm sorry I corrected you, TC. I guess now I'm starting to second guess myself. My mom always called it chamomile, and I'm thinking do I trust my mom's pronunciation?
Oh, I have no idea.
I don't think so. No, actually, I don't. After all,
ginseng. I don't remember what the other two are. I'm sure I could bring Kate in here. But here's what was really neat about this one. And I think what a lot of people glossed over with this and kind of wrote it off is that if you're trying to get people into understanding the mechanics of a deck building game, this is absolutely a game to get them to play, to have them understand the mechanic. And then after they play that, and if they like that style of mechanic, you can move on to Dominion, Thunderstone, whatever type of deck building game comes that's more complex than this. But as a light introduction to that style of game, it works really, really well. And it's based, and Kate bought the comic books they were based on, and they're really good reads. I mean, they're very encouraging, like, oh, these bad things happen to you, but it's okay because you got your friends to, support you and stuff. And this is like one of 3 games Kate keeps on her own board game shelf. Right? And I never understood it. Didn't get, the people blew it off. It didn't get covered. People who played it didn't like it. And I think they missed the point that maybe it wasn't made for them. Right? I was like, it's okay because the game, you're not the audience for this game. I mean, it's like me breaking out 1846 to people who just want to play a roll and move game, right? It's like that's not the type of game these people want to play. So if you're trying to get someone into understanding deck building, the mechanics of it, and more generally, if you just want to play a game you want to have fun with your family, T-Dragon Society is a really fun little game, and it's really thematic, and it's cute. I mean, I can't argue with that. It's like, oh, it's cute. And it's got dragons, and it's got my daughter wanting to play. And I'm upset because no one liked it. It's a good game.
So you enjoyed it, TC.
No. See what else I got here. Oh, here's a good one, Joe. Here's a good one. I got a chance.
You're finally going to put a good one on here, TC?
No, I don't know. This game was an experience. I don't know if it was a good experience or a bad experience, but not too long ago, we had David, who was on the Talk About Scythe on this other podcast we do. I got a chance to play one of the first Watch Your Games game out there. And it's called Sienna. Okay. I didn't know anything about this game, but David loves this thing. And I knew that if he ever came back, I'd want to play it. So I actually found a copy for like $2. And we just brand new in shrink for dirt cheap. So we finally came when we played it. And Joe, this thing is the craziest thing I have ever seen. It's first of all, it's, how we complain about, some games are like, they try to be language independent so that they don't have to worry about putting different languages on cards. They use symbols and pictures and stuff. This game takes it to such an extreme that it actually affects gameplay unless you know how the game plays. Because what this designer did is he found this artwork that he really liked. And the whole board is this picture. It's got this track going around it. And the cards are different sections of the picture. And they've got numbers on it. And unless you read into the rulebook, know what they do, just looking at it gives you no clue mechanically how it functions. It is weird. So we played it, and essentially what this game is like a trading game. You start as a peasant, trading like the basic corn and what is it? I remember there's like 3 different basic commodities you're producing to get money off of. Once you get a certain amount of money, you become a merchant. And then there's 2 higher commodities you can start dealing in. Once you get enough money as a merchant, you become a banker. And then you go to this whole different side of the board, and there's this little track you go around. Only bankers can go around this little track, right? And it's got this crazy bidding mechanism. It's got these mechanics where if you bid on a card at the beginning, you can play it, and then this random deck comes out, and you say a number, and you keep drawing this card until you get the devil. And if the devil shows up, you don't get any money at all. It was the weirdest, craziest, most unique thing I have ever played. It was, I can't even begin to describe this thing. It is crazy. I would love to see a reprint of this, maybe done a little better. It's a Watch Your Games game, and it blew past my radar, and I love that company. It was made by Z-Man back in the day, so the components aren't necessarily the best. Like the cards are like really crappy quality. The board has warped, right? So we had to lay it out and put a big dictionary on it to get it flat. But it was a very unique game, very different, very, I would say good, but it was neat. It was really neat, and I was been wanting to throw this one out to is it Trent who likes to watch your games, or is it?
I do.
Is it you?
Generally, I mean, I love Nippon. Yeah. I like the Vasco da Gama. I appreciate Madeira. I don't think I like it as much as a lot of folks do, but I like Madeira. And I think that everything that they've come out with recently has just been a really quality game. I even appreciated that Signori game, though it was a little bit lighter than a lot of their stuff. I never did play their most recent Railroad Revolution. I really like their stuff. I haven't played Loot Island yet, but that one's got some polarizing reviews. But
Loot Island's actually pretty fun. I like Loot Island. You should run down a copy of Sienna and force Andy and Trent to play this with you, because I'd be very curious to think, because we played it and I looked at Carissa and I said, "What do you think about this?" She's like, "I have no idea." I have no idea. I don't even know what we played. I want to try. I have to try it at least 3 more times to even figure out what this game's about. Because it is literally unlike anything I've played. And so I looked it up. It's like no one's ever reviewed it. No one talked about it. Some guy called Hello Gregor actually did something on it. And this guy's out there. He did this Virgin Queen unboxing video that you have to see to believe. He is literally molesting a Virgin Queen video game, unpacking it. It is, but it's the most bizarre video. If I ever made a video, I guarantee it'd be something like this, just to generate attention.
If you're gonna molest a game box, I just think maybe do something that's not called the Virgin Queen.
I know, maybe that was part of the thing. And he even did an unboxing video where he got Andy and Abyss and Cuba Libre and unpacked it in bed with his wife and kid, shirtless. Okay.
Okay, TC, I don't want to see these videos. I don't. I don't want to know that they exist.
I find these things so you don't have to.
I don't want to know anything more about anything that guy does. I want him to do himself and be happy, and never, ever, ever do I want to hear
knows about him. He says, "Hello, Gregor has some interesting videos." Yes, Mir, that is the understatement of the century. And I only found out about this guy because I was looking for reviews on Sienna. So here he goes. David Mir says, "Yeah, you do, Joe. You have to watch some Hello, Gregor. You will, Joe. I promise you, you will not be the same man afterwards." I'm not. I have emotional scars and baggage from this thing. So there you go. And that was he was the only one of the few people who actually covered Sienna. And I told David when he came, I was like, "I don't know how you found this game, but when I looked into it, I was scarred for life. And I'm glad you taught it, because I would never have gone near this thing after seeing that stuff."
Jeez.
Oh, yeah. And I think I'm going to end this list on a this is going to be my final one, because this is one that if you don't look past the packaging and the way it is, you would completely write this off as something bizarre, and that's Leaving Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving Earth is a fantastic math game, right? All it is math, because you got to figure out tonnage and thrust and how to get things into the upper atmosphere and then in orbit, and how to shoot them off into another orbit and crash on a moon to you probe. And it comes in this bizarre shoe. Have you seen the box this comes in, Joe? It's like a shoe box with the label. The label like secures the whole thing.
Like Noya Heimet sort of had that sort of a shoebox. And they even had like a little bungee cord string that you had to wrap around like a circle, like a button sort of thing.
This one was a little shoebox, but to hold it together, the label that tells you what the game is goes around it to hold the whole thing together.
Mm-hmm. And
the rule book is like a tech manual. And now it's not near the level that High Frontier is. There's nothing approaches the level of complexity that comes when it comes to like space stuff. But it's bizarre because it was like this weird box. It was published, the company, if you go to their website, it's like this game in felt stuff, like crochet felt stuff. So I'm like, hey, Carissa, I found the space game and you can order some crochet stuff. Check this out. Yeah, it's cool.
That's how you say, Carissa, I want to buy this. Yeah. And she's like, of course, if they're selling both of those things, you have to.
And Carissa loves the space race that from that era of NASA, from was it 62 to after the last of the Apollo missions. So she loves that era of NASA history anyway. Mm-hmm. And so she hates math, but man, she'll build a rocket and try to launch it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird. I saw the box, I kind of heard about it, and if I wouldn't have known about it, just the way this thing's packaged, I would have been like, no way. And if I went to that website to order, I'd been like, no way. But that's good. And I am still surprised that after figuring out how good this game is, that still hasn't got enough, discussion, because it's one of those. It's a unique game. It's cool. It's got a neat theme. It makes my wife want to do math, which I think is an accomplishment in and of itself, right? I mean, that game made her want to do math, like Arkham Horror the card game makes her want to build decks, which there were two things I thought I would never hear come out of her mouth ever. So that's I know Andy's heard about this one, and I think a few hardcore GMT designers have heard about it, but you should look, anybody who's interested in the NASA history of that stuff and the space race, should look into the Leaving Earth, especially if you're interested in like how does rockets work and how much thrust do you need, and you realize very quickly that just getting out of the Earth's gravity takes a lot of effort and energy.
Yeah. Well, TC, that's been a nice little list of hidden gems and games that really got looked over, and you're not hearing anybody else talk about it. So, it's good that they get some more representation. So
Mir says Leaving Earth requires Excel to play. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, see, I'm glad Mir's on here because I was going to need him to bounce ideas off of. He's he's going to be like our third host tonight. You hear that, Mir? Come on, step up your game.
Yeah, I don't know, TC. When it comes to like games that I play that I don't feel like get enough airtime, yeah, like I feel like there's almost always issues with distribution, availability that cause it, because I guess I believe
John Company.
Yeah, well, I
Root.
Well, Root is getting a huge positive response, so I certainly don't need to cry any crocodile tears over that one.
But you can't get it. Come on, leader game, step your game up.
Well, they're just in between printings. People will be able to eventually get it. I mean, I guess if you're in the sort of like secondary, third party wanting to make a few bucks, like I suppose you could turn a profit right now and probably be able to repurchase it before long. I believe. And I think you should, because I think it's a great game. I think Root is what it was promised to be, and I think that it's exciting to see that it's going to just continue to grow. And I mean, like I guess Tash Kalar, TC, like Tash Kalar to me is a game that I feel like should have just a huge community behind it. I feel like it should just be, but it's got that abstract aspect that just makes it so that I don't know. It's too interesting, and I use the word interesting the same way that people use the word fun to describe games that aren't Euros. It's like it's too frilly. It's got too much randomness. It's got too much uncertainty. It's got too much added overhead theme to a simple place, sort of like Go. But I do feel like it's an absolutely beautiful game. I think that the abstract community is going to balk at it and not really support it because of how much how much uncertainty there is, how much like the game can depend on what you have access to, which can feel very much out of your control, and the different card effects and just the whether or not your hand is kind of meshes together. I think that prevents the real people that would like take this and chessify it, just turn it into like chess where it's got like just analysis beyond analysis. But I also feel that like, it's an abstract. So like people that are wanting theme are going to be like, it's too abstract, which is unfortunate because I think it's one of the most beautifully, like the turns that I pull off in this game feel like at times like kind of almost artwork. And I feel like it's, it's a game that's been around for a long time. It's got a lot of exposure, but I think it should be significantly higher, better represented than it is. So I guess that's one that I had to dig deep to try to find one, TC, because really I guess I'm, call me mainstream here, but I feel like if I like a game, I expect it to get well supported. And also, TC, the loudest voice that I hear is my own.
Oh, that's true. Well, if I could go revisit Tash Kalar for a bit, I remember this game specifically, and I remember people buying it. And you're like, oh, it's the guy who did Dungeon Pits. What's that designer's name? Vlada. It was like, oh, it's a new Vlada game. It's going to be great. And they got this box. I remember this. And they opened the box up, and then that box was like way too big for what came in that game.
The original production certainly taints people's opinions of it because Z-Man puts it out for $60 and screws up the production, makes it crappy. It's just cards and tokens.
Yeah.
And you look at CGE puts it out, charges $40 and does a better job.
Yeah, I think that's why got that game, because I played it and I was like, oh, this is really good. Why aren't people playing it? And the guy, James, was like, this is why. This is the box it came in. I was like, are you kidding me? Holy cow. I would feel a little upset if I opened the box and got all that from that. I definitely remember that game coming out, and I enjoyed what I played of it, but I think just because of the way that thing came out is probably what killed that thing.
Yeah, of course. That certainly holds it back a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I guess when it comes to mainstream. I guess I really like it. And also,
we'll find some stuff for you.
Also, I haven't been taking risks recently. I'm not like, I don't have anybody around me who's like, hey, you should play this one. Usually I feel like I'm the one who's putting a game down, or it's a game that people in my game group, I feel like, are putting out games that, that are getting the love. And at least if my friends around me think a game is good, like, I guess I assume that that's how it's being received. And it's not always the case. Like sometimes you can get your eyes open. Like I've been trying to frantically scroll down the BGG, list of games that I've played and games that I've rated. And I'm just, they're like a lot of the games, every game that I look upon is like, there's this reason that it's not as highly rated as I feel it should be. Three Kingdoms Redux is that poster child for like, here's a game that's only 3-player. You talked about a game like this and it just doesn't get the love that it should, just because, it's only 3-player. It's a heavier game. It has those things that kind of hold it back. And, production and stuff, I feel like I can always at least point to a reason that something is not getting played. And for you, TC, I feel like what I'm doing as you're talking is doing more of a reason of pointing as to like, why the hell have you played this game? Is what I'm doing. I'm like it's like, why the hell have you even tried this game? And I look at, a lot of it is dragons. It's got dragons in it.
Yeah, I didn't even go into how I bought that. There's a Dungeons and Dragons board game, Wrath of a Charlatan. That we had never even played that thing, but my kids have played with the minis in that thing more than we've ever played with that mess of a system of a game that's in that box.
Nice. Now, I guess if I could, I love that Reiner Knizia games get remade. I love that they're kind of like these classic games that get reprinted, and I absolutely adore those games. And I do feel kind of like, that almost like the mainstream gaming has like sort of shifted so that these truly beautiful and interesting designs where, it's about player interaction in a Euro game system, like that's not what really seems to be getting the most attention right now. I feel like you can put out a run-of-the-mill themed worker placement game that's just literally just worker placement. I place a worker, I take these cubes, and as long as you've got 250 uniquely named cards like that, and here I am already coming out of the bag and just being like, why is Terraforming Mars so popular? And I know that people hate me for my views on it, but like when it comes down to it, when I see a game that I feel like does nothing new and nothing special and it just shoots to the top of the BGG top 100, maybe people feel that way when a game comes out like Teotihuacan. Like, it's got this heaviness to its structure, but it feels very much familiar if you played other games by the designer. And so people are going to play that and be like, this is nothing new. This is nothing all that interesting. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that one specifically. But, at least the criteria that I'm looking for seems to not be what necessarily shoots a game to the top of the list, to the very top, but at least, gets a game at least enough attention so that I don't feel like I need to put it on blast. Also, like I said, TC, I'm the loudest voice I hear. Seriously, I think I'm the loudest voice that anybody hears. So,
oh God, that means if we ever get together, it's just going to be a shouting match.
If I like a game, it's getting talked about, TC. So even just me by myself is enough to make it, to make me not feel like I have to put it on to a list of games that just aren't getting the love that they should.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
oh, you know what? Zoo Loretto the dice game.
Oh,
okay, here we
go.
Here
we go.
All right, so Zoo Loretto the dice game, and it's because I don't play this game in person. I only play it online. And what's ridiculous to me is I thought when I read the rules to this game, I thought, oh God, this is just going to be bad. And the funny thing is I still played it because I understood it. And, I figured that the high randomness aspect would help me to result in getting an extra win in the system on ukata.de, where for some reason I have now invested, enough of my time and energy to feel like I just want to move up to the next rank. And it doesn't give you anything except for just that sort of, feeling of like, oh, I'm getting up to the next rank. And they all have different names and stuff. And like I want to become the Itsamna. That's the absolute top. But I'll take an Ixchel for now, which is the second highest. They're all like themed around, like one of the Mesoamerican. I believe the Yucata would be the Mayan people's like hierarchy. I believe I'm right in saying that. I hope so. Especially a Spanish teacher, I feel like I really should know that better. But I'm not that familiar with the rankings of the Mayan or the Aztec people's society. Anyway, Zoo Loretto the dice game. Back to there.
Because you play these Aztec games, shouldn't you know something?
Well, I guess, yeah. Not only have I played the Aztec games, I've studied the culture, and I've written papers about the disappearance of the Maya and the.
You're digging yourself a hole, man. I'm trying to pull you out, man.
Well, I've read like Columbus's diary on the settling of the New World, which like pictures him as the hero. I've read extended stuff from Hernan Cortez as well as Bartolomé de las Casas, which is the first humanist, the first monk that supported the like converting these people and seeing them as human beings and not slaves to enslave and use to do your bidding. So I should know more about them than I do, but I don't know the specific rankings. I just know that Yucata has these rankings that are Mesoamerican themed, and I want to move up them. And to do that, I have to play more games. And one of those games is Zoo Loretto the dice game, which I've already played Zoo Loretto. So I'm like, hey, I'll read the rules. It'll be really easy. And here's the thing. Zoo Loretto, if you've not played it, on your turn, you either draft a tile out of a bag and then put it on one of the 3 available trucks, or you take a truck. So you're either doing one or the other. So what ends up happening is you're trying to make a truck that's just crappy enough so your opponent doesn't get anything good out of it, and you get all the good stuff. And what I like that Zoo Loretto the dice game does, because you can imagine if this game was just roll a die instead of draw a token out of a bag, it would be crap. What I think that this one does that's really cool is that you're not just taking 1, you're taking 2. And you're rolling this die and taking 2 different dice and placing them either on the same or different trucks. And just that aspect. Just imagine Zoo Loretto if you took 2 tiles at once and then had to place them either together or separately. And I'm finding that the choices that end up happening and the choice of whether or not to roll the dice, considering what's possible, is very much intensely, like there's been times when I've rolled the dice and I've realized I didn't get anything good, and then I thought, hold on, what was I hoping for? Like I think I just clicked roll dice because I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do right now. Because the way that the first player moves to whoever, like first player kind of sucks in this game because it's like, I almost feel like you get behind because everybody else now gets to see stuff before you. Like you just have to like put it out there for them. That's your job. And I feel like that jockeying around first player and the decision of whether or not to roll dice is much more intense and interesting in Zulurata the Dice game because you have the uncertainty of what's going to come up on the dice, but also the added impact of rolling two dice. I find that it is actually a game that I'm quite interested. I think that it is, especially in this age of the renewed interest in roll-and rights. Go back and check out Zulurata the Dice game. There's a lot more going on there than I first anticipated. You'll still find instances where you roll the dice and you're like, that's absolute crap for me. Like there is absolutely no arguing that, but I think there's more here than meets the eye.
I love that system. The Coloretto, Zuoletto. Zuoletto is one of the first games I bought for Kate to play, and we played the crap out of that thing. We even got Aqualetto because she liked dolphins. Yeah. I love that system. And I saw the dice game, and I saw it, and then I forgot about it. And I've always been curious how that played out because, again, I like that. I like that system. I like that system. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Very cool, dude. So I guess that kind of brings us to the end of the topic because that's I did what I could, adding something to the list. I dug deep. And now
maybe I didn't rant enough. I'll rant more next time.
Well, you can still, maybe rant just a bit. No, I think you did. You did a top-notch job of ranting, TC. I give you.
I'll rant about the hype game because I'm kind of mad about that. How about that?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you 3 sarcastic eye rolls to your rant.
Okay.
Which is a great rating.
I expect all 3. I expect that I want an advanced announcement of what triggers it.
Well, how about since we're talking in 3s for whatever reason, I want to hear your interest about the Arkham Horror game, the board game, which is now in its 3rd edition. Considering that you listed in the in our episode of the Long View, which if you don't listen to the Long View podcast, if you're interested in deeper dives than what you get on the Good Board Ugly, check out that podcast. We talked about all the games from a full calendar year ago, 2017. TC has some very strong opinions. I think I've already kind of spoiled that they're in the positive leanings towards Arkham Horror, the card game. Arkham Horror, the card game is giving you something extremely special that you never thought was possible. And I wonder what you're looking for from Arkham Horror, the board game.
Okay, so after I went off on my Arkham Horror, where I was like, I got the card game. I'm not interested in the board game. Or I got the card game. Screw the board game. The board game's dumb. I'm never going back to it. Blah, blah, blah. I actually decided to take again, this is a game night that they had a copy of the new game on the rental shelf, right? I'm like, okay. And the first thing that got my attention was that 3rd edition isn't anywhere on the box. This is Arkham Horror. This is their new version. I know it's listed as 3rd edition on BGG. When people talk about this version, they call it 3rd edition, but nowhere on the box is it advertises 3rd edition. So this is... I was like, oh, maybe this looks like it's almost an entirely different game. And I pick up the box. And then the second thing I noticed is that the Arkham Horror board game 2nd edition was a Call of Cthulhu board game that was licensed from Chaosium. Mm-hmm. That is gone. That is no longer licensed, which means they changed, which was another flag. I was like, wow, they must have changed this game up substantially if they could get out of the Chaosium license. They could call it Arkham Horror and not have to license it as a Call of Cthulhu game. Then they must have changed it up quite a bit. And the designer is Nikki Valens, who, if I remember a few years ago, me and the family played that Legacy of Dragonholt, choose your own adventure type Sherlock Holmes consulting detective fantasy flight game where there's like these books and you read it and you make decisions. I was like, okay, so I liked her writing. And then, so she was the lead designer on this, and it says inspired by the game by Richard Launius and Kevin Wilson, which means these dudes weren't even consulted in this thing. Okay, I got to crack this thing open and at least look at the rule book. From what I can gather, they took a lot of the mechanics that I really enjoy in the Arkham Horror card game and integrated them into the board game now. stuff like in the second edition, the monsters were chits. This one, they're cards, and when you move to them, you engage them, just like in the card game. It's got a. Have you played the Arkham Horror Game where you have like the chaos bag and you throw the chits out?
I've played it. Mm-hmm.
This has got a chaos bowl, right?
Okay.
I'm like, okay, and so I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow, and this is not the Arkham game. This doesn't even look like thematically. Looks like it's the only connection thematically, and it's a cooperative game against a big monster. It looks like those are the only two connections it has to this game. It's modular. It's got some different mechanics. It looks so I'm like, wow, this looks like this is an entire place completely different. Which could be a good thing, because in Arkham Horror, the board game, all you were doing was running around the city. Chaotic crap was happening to you. You had to try to close the gates, and if you didn't, you could get lost in time and space and sit out for 2 turns while the thing's getting chaos. It's waking up, and so first impressions, just reading through the how to play rule book, looks like this is going to be a vastly different game than the previous edition. So much so, like I said, they got rid of the Chaosium license and not calling it a Call of Cthulhu game anymore. So I am sad after we do my Keyforge tournament on Saturday. I'm renting the game and we're going to play it Saturday night. So next week I can give you more of an update if this thing's going to do what I think it's going to do. And I'll save people money because I'll only be out like $5 to rent this thing. I can be like, oh, I don't know, $5 is way too much, or. But yeah, the fact that they integrated the mechanics I enjoyed so much in the card game into the new board game iteration, has got me really curious about this one. So that's my hype. I'm going to give it a shot, and I'll report back to you, Joe. We'll see if it's going to be if maybe it's got some more of the horror elements that the card game has, or if it goes back to being Indiana Jones in the 20s with Cthulhu monsters. That the board game essentially was.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, TC, because I wonder whether or not this is going to have a place for you, considering that, you do love that card game so much. I mean, I guess it's going to be more of like that sort of party, bigger group experience. But I thought that some of the changes that they had made, in making the board game modular and stuff seemed interesting. And I trust Fantasy Flight, I trust, let me play like this. I trust the direction that Fantasy Flight is heading with their products. I have, having observed the company over the years that I've been in the hobby, I feel like they're always pushing in the positive direction. Now, Arkham Horror is one of those products where I'm going to wait and hear what you have to say about it, TC, before I ever even get into a game of it.
And to be honest, the biggest reason why I want to try this out is I talked to people who played it, and they were like, this is completely different from second edition. I don't like it. So, of course, that's a trigger for me to want to play something if people don't like playing it, right? I'm like, oh, okay, I got to try this now. If you don't like it, it's garbage. Oh, okay, I'm going to try this out. But honestly, the mechanics they've integrated from the card game got me very intrigued. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So, TC, thanks for letting me know about, your interest and excitement in playing this one. I know that like that renting to own is a really cool system that you're able to really get a lot of these newer games that otherwise, I would purchase, and then they sit on my shelf, and I wouldn't even get a single play out of it for whatever the list price is. And you're going to get a chance to play this one. I think that rental system is really cool, because then you have the impetus to actually get it played while you're renting it.
Yeah.
And you stay away from that. I think it's a really cool system. So let's now move on to my heights, which are a couple.
I'm excited about this one. If it's the one I think of it.
Well, I don't know, man. All right, so
I'll take the other one.
I'm going to be super positive about it because all right. So first of all, let me get out of the way. I'm talking about the games, a couple of games, actually 3 games total. 2 of them though are from the line of games that are pronounced Troyes. It's spelled Troyes, and it is a city in France. It is designed by Sébastien Dujardin, Xavier Georges.
One of my favorite designers. I love that guy.
Yeah, both of those guys can do some really good stuff. I think that Carson City is a great game. I think one that I really enjoy, and I do think that Deus has more there that I didn't really give a chance from the other half of that team.
The Egypt expansion is so essential for Deus.
Yeah, I remember you saying that on the thing that you kind of put together for that Punchboard Media thing. So it was I really appreciated your take on that.
I think it's better than Terraforming Mars, and I will take all kinds of flack for that because I really believe that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've already said something negative about it, and I'm not going to keep adding to it because I know that I'm already making some people upset. I know that people really love that game. So anyway, I am talking about TWA's two-player version, a two-player standalone game, and I'm really excited to see what this has to offer to make that two-player game of TWA work a little bit better. There was some very unfun possibilities where if randomness just so happened to give you two of the goals, they were kind of mutually exclusive, and you play with 2 goals per person in a two-player game. I think that TWA two-player is extremely exciting. From my perspective, I would certainly go out and buy that game. I hope that it sort of keeps the spirit of the game, but adapts to 2 players. Maybe it will be as good as Seven Wonders Duel. Who knows? The TWA, there is now coming out to be there will be a TWA dice game. And TWA is already a dice game, but they're going to make a dice game version. And it looks to be more like a roll and write game. And the way that I'm reacting to this, TC, is the same way that I feel like Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, was, which is that, it's taking a roll and write system, which I think in Castles of Burgundy's case, the thing that most interests me about Castles of Burgundy is the uniqueness of the player boards and the way that sort of like it influences the strategy that you take. And that, the game itself has enough tactical decisions to always maintain my interest, but then I can get excited and feel like I'm playing differently and I have different challenges based on what player board I take. So that's what I was looking for in the dice game, to offer me something like that, but to do so in, like a roll and write. Like I'm willing to accept other changes, but I would really like to see that sort of conserved, maybe, I guess. And maybe just having a lighter way of handling it, more of a dice, where maybe there's less mitigation, maybe there's more to the dice in the game, more focused on the dice part of it and not on the actions and the tile laying and stuff. So here with TWA, it seems to be a roll and write. The TWA dice game seems to be a roll and write. And looking at all the components that were there present, now I might be parsing the board incorrectly because I'm just looking at prototype, pieces, and I'm not seeing everything. But I'm wondering, where are the occupation cards? Because, like, TC, these occupation cards are what, in my opinion, make TWA absolutely beautiful. Like, just there's so many possibilities. You got like there's 9 different you'll play with 9 cards in every game out of 27. And I feel like with the expansion, Ladies of TWA, you double that. So there's just so many different possibilities, and some of them can really impact the game by making some resources scarce and other ones way, way, way more important than they usually are. I really, really, really love TWA, and especially with this expansion, it does these occupation cards. And I saw nowhere in this what seemed to be a roll and write sheet, and in the other supplementary pieces, it did not seem to be where there would be. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my English tonight. It did not seem to me that there was going to be those occupation cards, which is what hooks me about getting back into playing TWA. Like, it's one of those where the way that this game systems gets sort of like pushed and played around with by the pieces that are in that box, and then you kind of have to react to this economy being different in every game. To me, that's what I'm looking for from a game of TWA, and I'm not really seeing that in the pieces I see. It looks like it's going to be more of a filler with the core concept, but really kind of the emphasis on it being a filler roll and write with a similar structure each time. I don't know, man. I'm not sure what to think about it.
Yeah, I got an email on Board Game Geek about TWA too.
Yes.
That's why I was like, and then I looked into it, and it's like it's only going to be a print and play at this point. And it was released from the designer for TWA winning something like Trick Track or some award. But I love TWA so much that if anybody, I don't know if I'll get Andy to make me a copy. Andy loves making crap, doesn't he? He'll take a print and play version and just bling it out. He could try it out for us. But I like the designer so much, I'm willing to at least try it. And I even got a kick out of Tourney, which I think is a tremendously underrated game.
Tremendously underrated. I don't know if I'll go that far, but just I like the game. But like the fact that every time that you're getting cards, you're always just drawing 2 and keeping 1. Like I think it just has like a much more limited play, you know, much more limited scope than the Trois, which is like sets all these things
well,
up and
people
has
were
players.
expecting Turn A to be like a complete card version of Trois, which it wasn't. It was like its own game. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is its own thing. And what other game? Oh, Ginkopolis. Oh, I love Ginkopolis. That in Carson City. So anything this guy does, this Deus, I'm going to give it a shot. But I could wax for hours about how great Trois is. That game is like I think I even discussed it a few episodes ago, where Trois still stands alone. There is not a game that does what Trois does.
Yeah.
I mean, the dice, the way you use the dice, the way you spin the dice, the way you move around the board, the way you put meep, the way you can kick people out, it can be pretty nasty. The way you put your meeples on the profession to try to synergize and well, I don't know what the cards mean. It's language. You got a reference sheet. Figure it out.
Everybody that complains about Trois always talks about like I don't get the symbology. It's like you're misunderstanding the purpose of symbology. Like symbology is supposed to remind you.
It's like the artwork is so specific to that period and so representative of that period. Anyway, watch.
And there's only 3 cards that you have to explain at the very beginning of the game that have symbology on them. So it's like you only have 3 cards, and the next round you get 3 more, and the next round you get 3 more. And that's actually maybe my biggest complaint, is that I almost wish that there was a better way of revealing those cards, of maybe at least giving players some sort of predictable element to what's there, or at least maybe even making it an action to, like, you know, one of the places lets you look underneath a card or something, you know.
And I love how you all have to work together to get rid of those the
events.
Because if you just let those events go, I mean, it's like, well, you're cool. Like, you're thinking, like, well, it can only go up so far. Like, no, if you run out of spaces, it goes past the board, and you have screwed up playing the game. And then when you
play with the expansion, and some of the events are just wacky, you know, like you play with the Bandit Chief and the possession.
Possession, yes. Like, your people gets possessed, and you gotta go.
It's such a dynamic way of creating this event ecosystem that's constantly affecting players, and I think that it's beautiful. TC, I agree. Nothing's quite like it, and if you don't know to look past that, or to look at the art for what it's trying to do and not for where art is now and how it looks dated, that's its goal. It's supposed to look like that. It's medieval. The person that goes first is the last person to read a history book. Like, it's a Euro game that tells a story, which is
deceptively heavy. It is deceptively. I mean, there's a lot of decisions to make, and a lot of decisions that will cascade to other decisions. And it's wow. Like I said, we could spend a whole episode just talking about Trois. I'd be happy to do it.
Definitely. Well, if you want to spend a whole episode, you can maybe stick to listening to us on the stuff we do. If you just want to listen to like 3 minutes, check out Bottom Shelf Board Game. Alex's videos are just awesome. He puts them together. I think his Trois video is less than 3 minutes, and it basically says more than what I would say in probably 2 hours. So it's really good stuff. Speaking of really good content out there, we got some awesome contributors that are part of the Good Board Uglies Cardboard Cohort Network, and we're all just people that are working together and helping to promote what we see as being excellent content from great providers and producers. Cardboard in the Classroom and Cardboard Conjecture, which is getting some new styles of episodes. Some really good banter between their hosts, which I think have got some great chemistry. I think you should check them out. If you're looking for them, check them out at Bridge City Board Gamers on iTunes. Both of those the shows that I've listed are searchable on iTunes under Bridge City Board Gamers. If you just check Cardboard Conjecture or check Cardboard in the Classroom, they should also pop up there. So you should definitely subscribe to that and get your awesome content, which is one of our cardboard cohorts. And at this point, they are the cardboard cohort of us. But, you know, we were always looking for other great content like that. I don't say we're always looking for it, but when great content like that rises up, I'd love to do what I can to support them. So check that out. Norm, Ryan, and Luke, you guys keep putting out some awesome stuff. I love it when it pops up and I get a chance to hear you guys chime in and to hear Norm psychoanalyze people. Norm is like the Sigmund Freud of board games.
And he'll say he's sorry about 12 times at least.
Yeah. And by the way, Luke, I mean, I just wish I could say some positive things about Luke because, man, I've just got to dig so deep to find anything. And I'm saying this because he's in our chat right now. Luke, it's good to see you. It's sweet of you to stop by. And there he is. You know, ask of the devil or whatever. Speak of the devil. So it's good to see you here, Luke, and keep putting out some awesome stuff. I love your views, specifically representing the train gaming and economic gamer, kind of like what Andy does on our podcast, TC. But anyway, that's kind of Luke's role there, and it can be a hard job sometimes, Luke. But you got to keep the torch lit, because otherwise, you know, guys like me, we just get away with murder when we give our opinions. So,
well, yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Well, I'm not done hyping just yet. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited for Lincoln from Martin Wallace. It's the way that Martin, in his designer's notes at the end, the way that he frames it is like, this is a deck destruction game, because every time that you make a unit that goes on the board, you basically spend a card. Like, that's how this game goes, TC. I mean, think about it. That's how the Civil War was. It was just like, it was a meat grinder. You know, it was that first like predicator of the war that was to come in like the Russo-Japanese conflict, and then eventually in World War I, where the true meat grinders happened. But I think that the deck destruction, the fact that you've got, you know, every time that you want to make a unit, you have to lose a card from your deck, and now you can't do that anymore. You have to be judicious in how you do it, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. Right now, warming up with some games of A Few Acres of Snow to hopefully reacquaint myself with Martin Wallace deck building war games. So I'm really looking forward to Lincoln. I
want to hear your opinion on this one, because when someone played it and said something was wrong with it, so you had to go back and readjust it somehow.
That's true. And Marco, the wargamer Marco,
thank you, yes.
And I listened to his comments. I listened to his video, and yeah, from what he said, there was development work done on it in response to that. So from what I understand, that was worked on. However, remember, A Few Acres of Snow is a quote-unquote broken game, you know, where there's this really dominant strategy that if it happens to you, it can certainly feel hopeless. But I'll tell you straight up, if you know, you're a high-level player of A Few Acres of Snow, you know that anything can be possible, and maybe your percentages, you know, chess is technically a broken game if you consider that the advantage is to go first, and white always goes first, thus white wins like something like 55% of chess games. That's kind of the way that it is with like A Few Acres of Snow, where at your really high-level play, yes, you'll see it skewed towards the faction that has kind of an easier strategy that can be very dominant. But if you can't pull that off, or if you know what's possible for you to counteract that, like the French player early on, you know, I don't want to get into the specifics, but just know that there's a lot of discussion about it. And I think that, you know, they did work on Lincoln to respond to it. So I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Well, this going to this way, you know, at least A Few Acres of Snow was enjoyable enough for people to play it that much to figure out that was in it. So, yeah, that's something. And I love A Few Acres of Snow, and I'm going to pick up Lincoln at some point because I like Martin Wallace and I like Worthington games. But I'm going to be curious. I want to hear what you say about it, and especially if you and Andy play it. That's going to be a good episode.
Well, usually when Andy and I play two-player games together, it just feels like Andy's always doing something that I feel like doesn't make any sense. And I would say if it is this type of a game, like any game that I ever play with Andy that is like war-themed or aggressive, like he almost always seems to want to not attack. You know, it's almost like he's just going to try to figure out the game, and then I'm looking over at him like, Andy, this is a war game. I've got to remind you of this by coming and punching you in the face. And it's like, I just feel like a little bit of guilt, but at the same time, you know, when Andy plays 18xx with me, he can beat me mercilessly, and he can, you know, see that I've left this one place where if he tokens it, all of my routes are now done. You know, nothing works anymore. It's all over. It's all just salt and vinegar. So, you know, he gets those ones. You know, and I'm not saying that I get war games. I just get war games when I'm playing with Andy, because I think he gives me enough space to be able to come up with whatever strategy I want. So,
yeah,
but just like Andy. Nice.
That's Andy. Yeah, but yeah, I'm very, very curious to know what your impressions of Lincoln are. So keep me posted. Keep us all posted. I'm very anxiously waiting.
I certainly will, TC. This has been great to hear from you on a lot of these like sort of games that, you know, I feel like we were doing kind of a bit of cleanup on making sure that TC is getting to say things about these games, make sure that you're doing your due diligence in promoting the games that you want to see more of and games that you feel like people, you know, because of these bizarre constraints or relationships that you have. Why did I say bizarre? There's nothing bizarre about like having a relationship. I meant to say because of the bizarre games you play, many times because of a relationship or a other, you know, factor outside of your control. I think it's cool that you're telling us about the ones that have sort of risen to the top.
Yeah, and if anybody disagrees with me, which I'm sure most everyone will, feel free to post it on our Board Game Geek forum. I'd love to hear how wrong I am.
Yep, come check us out on the Guild number 2173. If you just go to BoardGameGeek/Guild/2173, you can join the Good, the Board, and the Ugly Guild. And yeah, every time that you post something there, I get that subscription, and I get to see all about it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from anybody from the crowd who here in the audience who's interested in telling us about the games that they feel like got ignored. So what got passed up in your experience? So tell us about that on the Guild, and have a great week of gaming. I'm Joe Sallin, the host of Good, the Board, and the Ugly, joined tonight by TC Reed, who's been ranting all night.
Yeah, that's typical.
And now TC will continue to rant, but we're going to turn this microphone off. Have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week on the Good, the Board, and the Ugly.